Welcome students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. Today we are going to talk about history of All India Radio. In the previous module we have talked about the history of radio broadcasting. We have talked about the technologies, how we achieved and how we reached to this point. Radio broadcasting was there throughout the world and radio broadcasting came to India as well. So in this unit we are going to talk about the history of All India Radio. By the end of this unit, you will be able to understand how All India Radio evolved, how All India Radio became the tool of development, and how All India Radio had its units and different channels throughout the countries. So by the end of this, as I told you, by the end of this unit, you will be able to describe the evolution of radio broadcasting in India, establish the relationship between radio broadcasting at national and regional level, and explain the different modes of radio broadcasting available in India. We have already discussed the keywords in radio broadcasting and broadcasting. The term radio is derived from Latin word means radius, meaning a spoke of wheels, beam of a light or ray, and the term broadcasting derived from the world of agriculture, meaning scattering seeds widely. In radio broadcasting, the radio magnetic waves are scattered in a particular radius so that radio broadcasting takes place. We have also discussed that radio broadcasting became possible only when the scientists from all around the world worked day and night. The first time the human voice was transmitted by radio is debatable. Claims to that distinction range from the phrases Hallorine spoken by Nathan V. Staffield to a test partner near Murray in 1892, to an experimental program of talk and music by Reginald in 1906, which was heard by radio equipped ships within several hundred miles. The term started to become preferred by the general public in the 1920s with the introduction of broadcasting. In 1915, a speech was first transmitted across the continent from New York City to San Francisco and across the Atlantic Ocean from Naval Radio Station at Arlington, Virginia to the Eiffel Tower in Paris. On November 2, 1920, Westinghouse KDKA Pittsburgh broadcast the Harding-Cox election returns and began a daily schedule of radio programs. Broadcasting began with amplitude modulation radio, which came into popular use around 1920 with the spread of vacuum tube radio transmitter and receivers. The first ship-to-shore two-way radio conversation occurred in 1922 between Deal Beach, New Jersey and the SS America 400 miles at sea. However, it was not until 1929 that high sea public radio telephone service was inaugurated. At that time, telephone contact could be made only with ships within 1500 miles offshore. Today, there is the ability to telephone nearly every large ship wherever it may be on the globe. You can see the photograph of Marconi, and this was his apparatus. This was his radio broadcasting apparatus, which made him popular, and people are saying that Marconi is the father of radio. With the passage of time, further improvement and new discoveries and inventions were made in the field of science and technologies. These modernizations help in upgrading the radio to its present form. Hence, the credit of inventing the radio cannot be bestowed to a single person, but has to be rather considered as a joint invention of many scientists, each offering their best of capabilities. Radio technology has grown significantly since its early development. If we read the history of other tools of mass communication, then we will see that in terms of other tools of mass media like newspaper, magazine, film, etc., took long time to reach India, but radio broadcasting came to India almost at the same time when the first world radio broadcasting took place. We have already read that on November 2nd, 1920, the first radio broadcast took place at Westinghouse, KDKA, Pittsburgh, USA, and in India, the first attempt in radio broadcasting was made by the Times of India Group in collaboration with the Post and Telegraph Department in August 1921. A special program of music at the request of Sir George Lloyd, the governor of province, was broadcast from Mumbai, who listened to this program at Pune, about 175 kilometers away. The Times of India records that a broadcast was transmitted from the roof of its building on 20th August 1921, but the first license was granted for transmitting broadcast was given only on February 23rd, 1922. After these efforts of Times of India, the amateur radio clubs started radio broadcasting in India. You can see a photograph of a transmitter, a small transmitter, which was first used in India in 1924 by the Madras Presidency Radio Club, and this is how the amateur radio club came and they started broadcasting in India. The Radio Club of Mumbai broadcast its first program in June 1923. In November 1923, the Calcutta Radio Club went on the air. Indian radio broadcasting can be divided in different time slots and different phases as per progress and the development. So, in the first phase, if we see the timeline, time duration, so it can be said that the first phase is 1921 to 1927. First broadcasting took place on 28th August 1921 at Mumbai, as I said you earlier, and broadcasting took place by amateur radio clubs of Bombay, Calcutta, Madras and Lahore. The Madras Radio Club started broadcasting on 31st July 1924 with a 40-watt transmitter. Later, it broadcast with a 200-watt transmitter for 2 hours every evening, but it closed down due to financial difficulties. Now, we are going to talk about the second phase, and second phase can be termed as, or can be said that it may be during 1927 to 1931. Financial difficulties forced the radio clubs to come together and they formed the Indian Broadcasting Company Limited (IBC) in 1927. Organized broadcasting in India was started by the Indian Broadcasting Company Limited in 1927. Bombay and Calcutta stations were inaugurated in July and August 1927. The first radio program journal, India Radio Times, was started on July 15, 1927. Its name was later changed to the India Listeners. The Madras Corporation restarted the broadcast service in 1930. But the Indian Broadcasting Company Limited was a financial failure in spite of a loan from the government. It went into liquidation and was closed down in March 1930. Under pressure from the radio set dealers, programmers and the general public, the government took over the Bombay and Calcutta station in April 1930. The Indian Broadcasting Service was formed. Those were the days of worldwide depression. The government too faced financial difficulties. Even otherwise, it was not very enthusiastic about broadcasting. So, it ordered the closure of Indian Broadcasting Service on October 10th, 1931. So, we can see the third page, and that is during 1931 to 1936. During this period, representations and agitation compelled the government to reverse the order of November 23rd, 1931. The government doubled the duty on radio sets. In 1932, the British Broadcasting Corporation started an empire service. The number of receiving sets, which were all imported, doubled in less than 2 years. This resulted in an increase in government's income from license fees. The increase in import duty on radio sets and components of the radio sets also enhanced the government's revenue. Broadcasting now became financially viable. It was decided to start a radio station in Delhi. It actually went on air on January 1st, 1936. The government decided to set up the Indian Broadcasting as ISBS, Indian State Broadcasting Service, under the Department of Industries and Labour. Leonid Filden was invited from the BBC, who became the first controller of broadcasting in India. Nowadays, the radio chief is called Director General, All India Radio. He persuaded the government to realize the potential of broadcasting and allot more money to the service. In his autobiography, The Natural Bent, he writes about financial problem and red tapeism in India. The journey from ISBS, Indian State Broadcasting Service, to All India Radio is very interesting. Llewellyn Filden gives an interesting account of how he could persuade the Viceroy to adopt the name All India Radio from Indian State Broadcasting Service. He describes this story in his book, as I told you, the important book, and you can say that it's an autobiography, The Natural Bent. In his book, he writes, I had never liked the title ISBS, Indian State Broadcasting Service, which to me seemed not only unwieldy but also tainted with officialdom. After a good deal of cogitation, which may seem ridiculous now, but these apparently simple and obvious things do not always appear easily, I had concluded that All India Radio would give me not only protection from the clauses which I most feared in the 1935 Act, but would also have a suitable initial AIR. I worked out a monogram which placed these letters over the map of India, but I mooted this point. I found that there was immense opposition in the Secretariat to any such change. They wanted ISBS and they thought it is fine. I realized that I must employ a title unnatural tact. I consulted Lord Linlithgow after a viceroyal banquet and said plaintively that I was in great difficulty and needed his advice. He usually responded well to such an opening. I said, I was sure that he agreed with me that ISBS was a clumsy title. After a slight pause, he nodded his long head wisely. Yes, it was rather a mouthful. I said that perhaps it was a pity to use the word broadcasting at all, since all Indian had to say broadcasting. Broad was for them an unpronounceable word, but I could not. I said, think of another title. Could he help me? He said, Indian State. I said, was a term which, as he well knew, hardly fitted into the 1935 Act. It should be something general. He rose beautifully to the bait. All India? I expressed my astonishment and admiration. The very thing, but surely not broadcasting. After some thought, he suggested radio. Splendid, I said, and what beautiful initials. The Viceroy concluded that he had invented it, and there was no more trouble. His pet name must be adopted. Thus, All India Radio, AIR, was born. Now we are going to talk about another phase that can be said fourth phase, and that fourth phase I am going to talk. This is the period 1936 to 1947. The name was adopted from June 8, 1936 as All India Radio. Filden got together a group of devoted young people. With the help of these and of Goider, his chief engineer, he started shortwave service in 1938 to cover the entire country. All India Radio Lucknow station went on air on April 2, 1938, and Madras station went on air on June 16, 1938. In 1939, the Trichy station came into being. The same year, External Service Division at Delhi was started. A.S. Bukhari, another dynamic administrator, took over from Llewellyn Filden to become the first Indian Director General. He was the first chief during all 2 years and thereafter till the partition. You can see the photograph of A.S. Bukhari, who was the first Indian Director General of All India Radio, and he took a lot of decision, a very wise decision to put All India Radio ahead for many things. A new broadcasting house was built on Parliament Street, New Delhi, On June 3, 1947, Lord Mountbatten, the then Viceroy of India, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru and Muhammad Ali Jinnah made historic broadcast on the partition of India. In the midnight, on August 14th, 15th, 1947, Nehru broadcast his famous speech, Tryst with Destiny. It is preserved in All India Radio archives. You can see the photograph of Pandit Nehru, and this photograph was taken at that point of time when Pandit Nehru was addressing the nation. Now I am going to talk about the fifth phase, which is during 1947 to 1957. Following the country's partition, 6 radio stations came to the share of India, and these are Mumbai, Calcutta, Delhi, Trichy, Lucknow and Madras. When the princely estates became a part of India, 5 more stations, Hyderabad, Aurangabad, Baroda, Mysore and Trivandrum, were taken over by All India Radio. During the first 5-year plan 1951 to 56, much development of broadcasting took place. In 1952, the first national orchestra was set up with Pandit Ravi Shankar as its conductor. Regional news bulletin in Hindi and Marathi were started in 1953 from Lucknow and Nagpur respectively. The first national program of talks too went on air in 1953. In 1955, the first Radio Sangeet Sammelan was broadcast. The same year, the Sardar Patel Memorial Lecture and Radio Newsreel were started. In 1956, the first National Symposium of Poets was broadcast, and also the national program of plays, operas and features started broadcasting. By the end of first plan, the number of radio stations has increased to 26. Dr. B.V. Keskar, the Minister of Information Broadcasting, he had his office during 1953 to 1961, did a lot for Indian classical music. He also brought eminent writers, poets, musicians and playwrights on contract as producer. Finances for broadcasting for second plan 1956 to 1961 were increased 4 times as against finances in the first plan. In 1957, Vividh Bharati and All India Radio Variety Program service was started at Mumbai. It provided light entertainment with a generous combination of film music. Over the years, it has become a very popular service. All India Radio, the name was adopted by first Controller General Leland Filden and continued to with the name of Indian Radio Broadcasting even after independence. An alternative name of All India Radio was adopted in Hindi as Akashvani in 1957. In this photograph, you can see the All India Radio headquarters, which is situated at Delhi, and it is on the Parliament Street. Akashvani is a word of Sanskrit origin meaning celestial announcement or voice from the sky heaven. In Hindu, Jain and Buddhist holy tradition, Akashvani is often featured in stories as a medium of communication from the heavens to mankind. Akashvani was first used in context of radio by M.V. Gopalaswamy after setting up the nation's first private radio station in his residence, Vittal Bihar, about 200 yards from the All India Radio current location in Mysore in 1936. Akashvani seemed to be an appropriate name for a radio broadcaster and was later adopted as All India Radio's on-air name in 1957. It is not sure who used the word Akashvani for the first time or from where the name Akashvani is derived or taken. There are 2 important stories related to this. Some of writers say that the name Akashvani owes its origin to a poem especially composed by Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore for the inauguration of Calcutta shortwave transmitter in 1938. But some writers say that the title Akashvani has been borrowed from the existing radio station in Mysore. On September 10, 1935, a radio broadcasting took place with a 30-watt transmitter which was inaugurated by Dr. Metcalfe, the Vice Chancellor of Mysore University. This station was named as Akashvani. Since Mysore station came into existence in 1935 and 3 years later Calcutta station was inaugurated, in which Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore enchanted his poem containing the word Akashvani in 1938. Hence, the credit should be given to Mysore station. So, now I am going to talk about the sixth phase of All India Radio, and it is 1957 to 1994. In the year 1957, All India Radio was renamed Akashvani, which is controlled by the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. During the period of independence, only a mere 6 radio stations existed throughout the country, but during the late 1960s, the network of All India Radio extended to almost 146 AM stations, you can say primary stations. However, the integrated Northeast service focused on reaching to the population in Northeast India. All India Radio offers programs in English, Hindi and numerous regional and local languages. In the year 1967, commercial radio broadcasting service started in India. The initiative was taken by Vividh Bharati and commercial service from the headquarters in Mumbai. Vividh Bharati accumulated revenues from widespread sponsorship and advertisements. News services is the another segment of All India Radio through its central and regional news bulletins and its current affairs. Commentaries and discussions provided accurate, objective, speedy and comprehensive coverage of news to the listeners at home and abroad. The major sources of news of All India Radio are its correspondents at home and abroad, the news agencies and the monitoring services. All India Radio made its first broadcast to listeners outside India on October 1st, 1939. Today, the external service of India broadcasts in 25 languages for about 50 hours daily around the clock, reaching listeners in widely scattered area throughout the world. A self-contained service of popular entertainment known as Vividh Bharati was started in October 1957 to meet the growing demand for popular music and light features. Commercial advertising was introduced on All India Radio in November 1967 from the Bombay Nagpur channel of Vividh Bharati on an experimental basis. It was gradually extended to Calcutta 1968, Delhi and Madras, Tiruchirappalli 1969, Chandigarh, Jalandhar, Bangalore, Dharwar, Ahmedabad, Rajkot, Kanpur, Lucknow, Allahabad in 1970, Hyderabad, Vijayawada in 1971 and Bhopal, Indore, Cuttack, Jaipur, Jodhpur, Patna, Ranchi and Trivandrum in 1975. National program was started in July 1952. The weekly national program of music provided an opportunity to the listeners to hear well-known exponents of Hindustani and Carnatic music. It has helped in a better understanding of the two systems prevalent in North and South. At suitable intervals, programs based on re-recording of old masters are also featured in this program. The medium of drama is utilized for popularizing the economic program. A special series of short plays on various themes including the economic programs, family planning, dowry and anti-casteism are regularly broadcast from All India Radio. Special programs include programs for women, for children, for armed forces, for industrial workers, for hill tribes in their own dialects, which number around 135 for rural audiences and consist of plays, skits, agriculture and other matters, and program on family planning in all national languages and in important dialects as often as possible. Yuv Vani program for the youth in Yuv Vani are broadcast from all over All India radio stations. This service provided a forum to the youth between the age of 15 to 25 who represent their viewpoint by participating in a wide range of program talks, discussion, interviews, plays, features and music. A youth news bulletin is also broadcast by the youth themselves. Now I am going to talk about the seventh phase, which is during 1994 and till date, or you can say that whatever is there, we can talk about that after 1994. FM revolution. All India Radio operates at present 18 FM stereo channels called All India Radio FM Rainbow, targeting the urban audiences in a refreshing style of presentation. 4 more FF channels is called AIR FM Gold. Broadcast composite news and entertainment program from Delhi, Calcutta, Chennai and Mumbai. With the FM wave sweeping to the country, All India Radio is augmenting its medium wave transmission with additional FM transmitters at regional stations. In keeping with the government decision for transmission to the digital mode of transmission, AIR is switching from analog to digital in a phased manner. The technology adopted in the digital radio model or DRM with the target of complete digitization by 2017. The listeners can look forward to highly enhanced transmission quality in near future. We started this strip in 1921 and it is 2017. So we have traveled along and I talked the different 7th phases of All India Radio, how it started, how All India Radio was named after ISBS, and then in 1957 we adopted another name, Akashvani, and since then All India Radio has seen many developments and we have taken many decisions to make it viable, make it popular and to make it important for the national broadcasting. Today All India Radio is serving throughout the country and it's also serving the people who are abroad. I hope in this unit whatever you have learnt about All India Radio, it is going to be useful. Thank you.